Welcome into this week at Gridiron Icon. Very excited to invite in a guest, a new friend, Austin Stanley, host of A to Z Sports in Nashville. If you haven't discovered them, go find them. You will do so after this interview. Goes on a deep dive with everything Tennessee sports and beyond, college, pro, you name it. So Austin, welcome, man.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Excited to be here and talk about a big game.
Yeah, we got kind of a big game, and I guess being as transparent as I can be, I'm a diehard Rams fan. I know that shocks you from the visual, but I'm also a big fan of some of the things the Titans do, and a lot of it's connected to some of the Rams that are on that Titans roster now, former Rams, I should say. But hey, A to Z Sports in Nashville. Give us your quick standard elevator bio on you guys. I'm really enjoying following you.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. Yeah, Zach Bingham and I created this company 5 years ago. We were actually on local radio with the ESPN affiliate before that for a few years. And Austin and Zach, that's the A to Z Sports. A lot of people don't realize that until
I didn't realize that.
That's it. Yeah, see, there you go. Exactly. So it takes some people like years to realize that it's not just sports from A to Z. It's Austin and Zach. But so we left radio, got into this, created this company in the football season of 2016. And then we started doing live stream shows Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning and go for about an hour. And Zach's background is in radio sales to get in his foot in the door, and mine was in programming. So it was a good combination. We were able to monetize our show, sell some sponsorships, create a website, get, grow from there. And, ever since that, we've got 2 5-day-a-week live streaming shows with our show in the morning. Buck Rising, one of our employees, does the nighttime show, A to Z Sports Primetime. We've got a podcast network, tons of social media content, game day reaction shows for most of the Titans and the Vols. We actually this summer just launched our Dallas market. So we're trying to replicate what we're doing in Nashville, in Dallas. Once we prove that concept, then we can expand to market 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Who knows when we're going to stop? But it's been fun. It's been crazy fast over the last, I would say, 18 months. But we love what we do. And luckily, the Titans this year are a fun team to cover with superstars and drama.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Wow, man. Great deep dive on your background. Love that. Inspiring for the rest of us as we try to build our podcast networks as well. Good stuff. Well, thank you for coming on the show. So let's just jump right into this. And you have had a really busy week. Let's call it like we see it. There has been no shortage of stories in your world out there with the Tennessee Titans. We'll kind of focus on them, and then we'll go into kind of a look at what they got coming up with the Rams, which is no secret, my team. So, wow. I mean, when I originally reached out to you, it was, let's talk about Titans and A to Z Sports, and it's become, let's talk about the Titans in a whole new way. Derrick Henry. Big week, bombshell announcement prior to the trade deadline with his injury. Where are we on the Derrick Henry injury? If you could give us an update from where you sit. And then also, you had a really great show earlier this week. You talked about your theory that he was playing on that foot through the remainder of the game.
Yeah.
Is that for real?
Yeah, so on the CBS broadcast on Sunday in Indianapolis, they showed Derrick Henry in the first quarter with his cleat off on the sideline, trainers looking at his foot, and it was his right foot. And then he came back, so he didn't miss a series. Now, the Titans got off to a really bad start. The Colts go down, score a touchdown drive. The Titans throw to pick an interception on the second play. And then the next drive, Derrick Henry goes out there. They go 3 and out. So it was after that second carry that he had on that drive where something happened because they were looking at his foot during that next defensive possession. And so after that moment, he had 26 more carries. And he had a crucial 4th down carry that converted late in that game that helped the Titans continue to go down there and score. He wasn't super productive. It was actually his least productive game in quite some time as a running back, only under 70 yards on 29 carries in that game, but he got it done. And just the threat of Derrick Henry being on the field was enough for Ryan Tannehill and AJ Brown to take advantage and win that game. But so at the time when we're recording on a Wednesday, Derrick Henry had successful surgery that we know now Tuesday morning on the Jones fracture of the fifth metatarsal, which is the big long bone on top of your foot by the pinky toe. And so basically, we actually had a foot and ankle specialist from a ortho clinic that sponsors us on Tuesday, kind of about this whole thing, or that they go in there, they drill a hole, they put a screw in there that brings the fracture together to hopefully allow it to heal faster. And so the timeline, Ian Rappaport with NFL Network said 6 to 10 weeks. And that's kind of what the surgeon thought as well, that, the first thing, you got to wait 8 to 10 days for the incision to heal from the surgery, get the swelling down, make sure you take it easy for a couple of weeks to allow that bone to heal. And then maybe about week 4, you get into a tennis shoe and start doing some, biking, some elliptical, some light weights there. And then maybe week 5 or 6, you start getting out there and running a little bit. And the technology these days is nuts, where you can wear like pants on a treadmill that limits your, like 50% of your weight is what you're running on, or 35% of your weight is what you're running on with all the different technology. And so it was really informative, that conversation we had yesterday with the sport ortho doctor about this. And, the Titans, they can afford for him to be out for 6 weeks, 6 to 10 weeks. They're in a good spot, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But that's kind of the latest on the Derrick Henry surgery, that they did say Wednesday that it was a successful procedure on Tuesday. So that's good news. The Titans can't afford a setback whatsoever.
Man, I got to tell you, if there was ever a doubt that King Henry is an absolute tough guy, there you go. He kept running on that ball, and the amount of weight that he carries and just his frame on that foot is just incredible, just unreal. So as you look at the team now, they're probably going to usher in Jeremy McNichols. Is that the way they're leaning right now? Who was no slouch at Boise State. How do you see that impacting? And then we could talk a little bit about Adrian Peterson too.
Right. Well, McNichols has been great, in the role that he's played. They trust him in pass protection, which is really his key role. And he's second on the team in receptions at this point, behind A.J. Brown, which is surprising because Julio Jones and A.J. have both missed time with injuries. So McNichols has been reliable. He's good in the screen game. He's good yards after the catch. He's converted third down longs several times. He hasn't really got a lot of opportunities running the football this season, but they like him a lot. And then they did bring in Adrian Peterson, also Dante Foreman, who they had on this team at some points of the season last year, who is like, nobody's Derrick Henry, right? But when you look at running back stylistically, big body, downhill runner, physical guy, runs behind his pads, that's what Foreman is. And then Adrian Peterson at age 36, he's on the practice field today for the Titans on Wednesday. We'll kind of see what he looks like out there, but wearing Marcus Mariota's old number 8 for the Titans moving forward. So the single digit numbers for Adrian Peterson is going to be interesting, but it's going to be a 3-headed group, right? And I think I like what they have there, but the big question is, will anybody have the type of impact that Derrick Henry has on the defense when it comes to play action? Because that's where the Titans passing game really gets going.
Yeah, wow, man. That's incredible. Breaking news on the jersey number with AP. Wow, I had not followed that yet. And of course, being from Oregon, we're out here in Oregon as we speak. Mariota still, God, we root for that guy. We really root for him. So unbelievable. These running backs are mind-blowing. I mean, Adrian Peterson, 36. We could talk all day about Frank Gore. We too have a running back on our squad, Cam Akers, who tore his Achilles, and 4 weeks later, he's already posted videos of him running on that thing. What world are we living in, man? These guys should be in a cast somewhere.
It's crazy. And it's, the doctor was telling us that, for normal people like me and you, if you wanted to avoid surgery, you could do that with this metatarsal break. But we would be non-weight bearing for 6 weeks. And they don't have time for that. So they're going to have this screw put in. They're going to go towards it and try to get back playing in 6 to 10 weeks, which is
unbelievable. Crazy. Okay. So before we leave King Henry, who I think is by far the most dominant back, what do you think this does to his MVP chances? Because I think there was no question outside of, 4 or 5 quarterbacks that are always in the conversation. King Henry was looking like a guy that was going to pull that trophy.
Oh, it's unfortunate because he was on track to really do a lot of things that the NFL hasn't seen in a while. He was on track to be the first back-to-back 2,000-yard rusher. He was on track to be the only 2,000-yard rusher to have 1,500 yards or more the next season. And what's interesting is you go through the 2,000-yard rusher list, there's a massive drop-off that second year. And I guess there's a reason for it. I mean, Derrick Henry, who you thought was unbreakable, had his foot kind of fall out from under him. He was on pace for 25 or more rushing touchdowns. Wow. He was really on pace to become a Hall of Famer this year. And that's not like hyperbole at all. Derrick Henry was on pace to become the third or the fourth running back in NFL history to lead the league in rushing for 3 straight years. He would have joined Jim Brown, Earl Campbell, and Emmitt Smith.
Maybe you've heard of those guys.
I mean, he would have, he would have been a Hall of Famer. I mean, he still might be a Hall of Famer at this point, but he could have locked up that gold jacket if he would have just led the league in rushing this year, let alone get another 2,000-yard season.
God, unbelievable. And as a guy who's met and is a huge fan, my GOAT, Eric Dickerson, I'm always side-eyeing King Henry, like, don't break that record, 2105, baby. Don't break that.
He was on pace for that, too. I mean, it was crazy the first 7, 8
Unbelievable
games.
Talent, man. Well, we're rooting for him. And I tell you what, he comes back to the playoffs and tears it up. They still got to consider him for that award. It's just such a quarterback award. But, God, the hits that man takes are just
and he's a really good guy, too.
That.
I think that's what a lot of people in Nashville, like Derrick Henry doesn't show his personality like a lot of people in the NFL do. But everybody in that locker room has the utmost respect for him. He is by far the biggest and best leader they have from the player standpoint. He's great in the community. He's just a really good guy, and he works his tail off. And you can obviously see that he does that. So unfortunate for him, he's got to be kicking himself not being able to, do much for the next 8 to 10 days.
God, we're rooting for him, man. We really are. He is a great guy. That he bringing in that high school kid who broke his record earlier this year was one of the coolest highlights of the year. I mean, it was just really cool. We've had a handful of them, and that was one of them. So moving on from the King, because we're rooting for him, get healthy. We always want the best players out there. Can this team in his absence lean on Tannehill, in your opinion?
I mean, they're going to have to, and I think they can. I mean, there's been one game where Ryan Tannehill started without Derrick Henry. It was back in a late season meaningless game against the Saints where it had zero impact on playoff implications, AFC versus NFC, and Derrick Henry missed that with a calf injury. And the Titans really were in position to win that game over Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and the Saints that year, but a really weird play towards the end. It could have been a pass interference, could have been a late hit, but ended up being an interception the other way where Tannehill played really well in that game. And I don't know about this game. This is a game that's going to be tough for the Titans with what they have up against the Rams, especially with Von Miller. But I do think the schedule sets up really nicely for them to be fine. They've got a 3+ game lead over the Colts in the division. So really, they only got to win like 3 games to lock up the division, because then the Colts have to go 8-1, and that's not happening with Colts and wins.
No way.
So they're gonna make the playoffs. It's just now it's about how can they position themselves, and they've got key tiebreakers over the Bills, key tiebreakers over the Chiefs, and the division lead. Right, so they've done a lot of the heavy lifting for themselves for playoff positioning, and I think Ryan Tannehill's been really good. And we look at the Titans a lot closer than everybody else does here in Nashville. But Ryan Tannehill's been the one consistent thing that the Titans have had offensively all year. There's been a lot of banged up guys on the O-line. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones have been in and out in the lineup with hamstring injuries or whatever it might be. Derrick Henry's now gone. And Ryan Tannehill's been the one consistent guy. His numbers are down for touchdowns. His turnovers are up, unfortunately. But a lot of that's just due to circumstances outside of him, not necessarily him making terrible decisions all the time. Although he has had a few bad decisions, but I trust him. I think Ryan Tannehill can get this thing done.
I think he's underrated. So early, this may be we're sitting here in basically mid-season, but one of the biggest off-season stories was you guys landing Julio Jones. What is the vibe around Nashville, Tennessee, the fan base, when it comes to how Julio Jones has performed and how that compares to A.J. Brown? What's the vibe in that wide receiver room?
I think on Julio, because when they traded for Julio in June, it was, oh my gosh, the Titans are going for the Super Bowl, right? And And then a weird thing happened in an August training camp practice where he kind of went down awkwardly, stood up, kind of stood on the sideline, went to the locker room, and you didn't see him for 20 days. He missed 20 straight days at training camp for something. And Mike Vrabel never talks about injuries, and so you never know what's going on. There's this whole weird playing coy thing about Julio's hamstring. Is he tight? Does he actually have an injury? What's going on? And so I think the word I would use to describe Julio Jones and the temperature is that Titans fans are puzzled right now with Julio Jones. When he plays, he's been pretty good. And then he just hasn't played. And he's against the Colts in week 3. The Titans were in a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. Julio was on the sideline, and Vrabel was asked why. He just said, well, that was the thing that we wanted to do that was best for the team. And then he missed the next 2 games. Then they were up on the in the Bills game, which was a tight game. On Monday night, Julio basically sat out a lot of the fourth quarter again, and you don't know what's going on. Then he played in the Chiefs game, did well, and then just didn't play against the Colts. And so it's very confusing and puzzling for what's going on with Julio Jones. But you just want him healthy now, right? Like Derrick Henry's gone for the next 2 months, let's say. Now is when Julio needs to show that he was worth what they gave up in that trade to Atlanta.
Yeah, he's still so terrifying, but I don't know over the last few years if there's a more enigmatic player than Julio Jones in Atlanta and now in Tennessee. I expected him to come in there and explode. He got a fresh start. A.J. Brown's been dinged a little bit, but I've always been curious what that vibe is around him. Or, we're only halfway through the season and we know what this man can do. He is unbelievably talented. I'm going to throw something at you I did not bring up before. Has there been any talk as to the performance surrounding Josh Reynolds? Of course, he was a guy, when I looked at the Titans in an early season preview before the season started, I went, my God, the Titans are terrifying. They've got an NBA team at wide receiver. They've got to have the biggest wide receiving core in the NFL. And if you don't like that, here comes King Henry downhill. I mean, I really had them as a favorite, particularly unseating the Chiefs, the Bills. But has there been any talk about how Josh Reynolds, he hasn't done much? And I'm just wondering, is that by design or?
It's kind of the same thing with Julio. Yeah. And so when the Titans signed him in March, I was like, that's the perfect signing for a Titans wide receiver in free agency because he's cheap. He's under $2 million on a 1-year deal. But apparently he had shoulder surgery in the offseason. And we didn't really know that until he got to practice. And then he didn't look very explosive, which I watched Josh Reynolds at Texas A&M quite a bit and know that he's not the most explosive guy, but he's got a ton of ability and a natural at the position. And then he was dealing with an Achilles thing. And so he was kind of a day-to-day situation throughout camp where sometimes he wouldn't be there. The next day he'd show up, he'd warm up and go inside, then he'd practice fully. Oof. And he actually admitted to us, the media himself, saying that, yeah, he's dealing with an Achilles thing, and he kind of tests it out every day to see if it's going to be a good day or a bad day. And I'm thinking, well, why not just shut him down for 2 weeks and let the thing heal and then get something out of him? But during that time when he was day-to-day with the Achilles, you had practice squad fringe roster guys like Marcus Johnson and Chester Rogers take advantage of it and carved out roles for this team. And so now when you've got those guys, and including Nick Westbrook-Akine, who they love, a second-year guy out of Indiana, all 3 of those guys play special teams. Josh Reynolds does not. He's a 4 or 5-year vet. He's not playing special teams. And they give special teams value. So if Julio, AJ, and those 3 guys are out there, Josh Reynolds has been inactive, healthy. And so I don't really know what his role is. I mean, he's great depth, and he might be the best healthy, inactive player at the position in the NFL. But he just can't figure out how to have a role on this team. And I like Josh Reynolds. I thought it was a great signing when he came over from LA in the offseason, but it's just been a weird start.
Yeah, that's thanks for the breakdown, because I tell you, as Rams fans, we've been watching him, kind of rooting for him. I half expected yesterday for Brad Holmes and the Lions to reach out to Vrabel and the Titans and go, hey, look, he's Jared Goff's guy. They had some success together. Let's send him over here on the cheap. But yeah, didn't get that news. So the Josh Reynolds things is another one of these. God, I hope it doesn't fade into obscurity. But I do wonder how much he
He's
loves.
on a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
This is a proven deal. So what? I mean, he's not proving
no,
much right now, and so he's got 9 games to kind of
this
figure
could
it
be a
out.
bounce around type thing. Okay, well, let's shift gears. I've talked enough and dropped my Rams stuff in there as much as possible. Let's talk about this game. Man, is this going to be a great football game, in my opinion. I think the Rams are in for a test. I think the Titans are going to come in with emotion. Vrabel always comes with emotion from that Patriot tree. He knows the McVay style. He knows that whole philosophy, so to speak. As you look at this game, and we'll, feel free to drop in what you think the keys are. For me personally, I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking, can that Titans defense, particularly on the back end, the DB, stay with the Rams offense? They're 23rd in pass defense. The Rams are 4th in pass offense. What do you see there? And this is probably something you've covered a million times over this season with that defense. Are they going to be able to hang with the Rams?
Well, they're very, very much improved from where they were a year ago. And the pass rush has been great
Yeah.
the last few weeks. And Harold Landry is on fire right
Wow.
now. The guy's 8.5 sacks, second in the league behind Myles Garrett. Bud Dupree, who they signed from Pittsburgh in the offseason as well. I think he's getting into a groove. He tore his ACL late in the year for Pittsburgh last year, and he missed a couple games. He mentioned that he thought he kind of came back a little too early. But it looks like Bud Dupree, Harold Landry, Danico Autry, who was another free agent addition, and Jeffrey Simmons. Those 4 guys up front, I mean, I know the Rams are pretty stout up front too, but I mean, let's just say in the AFC, it's really hard to argue those 4 Titans guys up front in the AFC with what they've got when it comes to explosive ability around the edge and up the middle. So you like that a lot. Now, on the back end is where it's tough because the Titans have been through injuries all over the place. I believe they have 17 or 18, maybe even with Henry, 19 guys on IR right now, which is nuts. One of those being Christian Fulton, who is a second-year guy out of LSU, second-round draft pick from a couple years ago. And that guy was balling out. He was shutting down wide receivers left and right. He held DK Metcalf to 1 catch for 8 yards in week 2. He was just phenomenal for the first 5 games of the season, and now he went on IR. Yeah. And the crazy thing, he goes on IR. You think your best corner goes on IR right before Bills, Chiefs, Colts.
Oh, man.
Well, the Titans go win, win, win. And so they're able to get it done. So your point about Vrabel and playing with emotion, and when everybody thinks you're out, Vrabel gets his guys in. That's kind of the MO the Titans have shown. So Kevin Byard's having an all-pro season at safety. He had his 4th interception on Sunday against the Colts in overtime. He's forced fumbles. He's recovered a fumble for a touchdown against the Jags. Kevin Byard's back. You like what they have next to him with Amani Hooker in the back end, but really the corner position is tough because Janoris Jenkins, who now calls himself Jackrabbit, officially, he has not been very good. Yeah, that's right. Yes, Rams fans know Jackrabbit well. And so Jackrabbit looks like he's 32 years old. He's not playing like he was, several years ago. But he's actually been better as of late. But they've got a bunch of no-name type of guys at corner without Christian Fulton. And it's still Wednesday as we're talking now. There's still time for Fulton to be activated off of IR before Sunday night. So will that happen? I don't know. I mean, we'll have to kind of monitor that as the week goes on. But the Titans defense is much improved, but I don't know if they're that improved. Matt Stafford looks great. Full disclosure, I picked the Rams over the Bills in the Super Bowl preseason.
Wow, so all right.
I really like what Matt Stafford can bring to that. That also says a lot about what I thought of or what I didn't think about Jared Goff. I thought he was extremely mediocre, which has proven to be the case for the most part. Van Jefferson's actually a guy I covered when he was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Van Jefferson's actually from the Nashville area. His dad, Sean Jefferson, was the Titans wide receiver coach during that time. And when Van was a junior and senior, that was when I was cutting my teeth through some local media, and I was actually covering some high school football, and actually got to know Van a little bit because his team won a state championship one of those years. And Van was just, the most polished high school wide receiver you've ever seen. And so I've kind of followed Van's career a little bit. So I really like him as a player a lot. And obviously Cooper Kupp is a beast too. So I don't know if the Titans will have much luck against this Rams offense.
God, love the Jefferson tidbit. Big fan. I think every time I watch him, I see a little Isaac Bruce. It's certainly, I mean, we as Rams fans, I mean, he's so polished.
And what was crazy is like the preciseness of the dude's routes when he was 16 years old was just off the charts. And like I'm sitting there watching as a reporter on the sideline, and Sean Jefferson, who I got to know a little bit because of this, is like right there next to me. And he's like coaching Van up like from the 5-yard line on the sideline. And look, Van's a great guy. He was a good kid to cover, but just so polished as a wide receiver, knowing exactly how to create separation, get in and out of routes at that level was phenomenal to watch. And I'm excited to see him have success in the NFL.
God, what a killer experience, man. Love that you dropped that on us. That is fantastic. A big Van fan. Great with the kids, great with the fans, pure class. And his dad was amazing when he played, just blue collar, went to work. But Van's got more talent. He's so polished. I think that watching Van Jefferson plays a big role in why they looked at Deshaun Jackson and went, we don't want this in the locker room. Van is really our future 10 years from now. So, wow. Yeah. Great tidbit, man. Great. There's so many connections on this Rams-Titans matchup this week. Jackrabbit.
Isn't Bryson Hopkins? Is he still with the Rams?
He is. Yeah, but I tell you what, man, the rumors are residing solidly in the doghouse. Like he is not. Really? The Rams moved Kendall Blanton off the practice squad last week, and he leapfrogged Bryson Hopkins. And we drafted him, I believe it was the 4th round 2 years ago.
Yeah, mid-round.
There's just no excuse for it. I don't know what the situation is. Everybody's very tight-lipped in this organization.
Yeah, it keeps on going. I don't know what the Nashville connection is with the LA Rams, but Bryson Hopkins from Nashville. I actually worked with his dad, Brad Hopkins, former NFL, former Titans, Oilers left tackle. And then I just remembered. I covered Jalen Ramsey in high school as well when he was at BA.
Really?
Yes, that was. So that Brentwood Academy team, which was one of my rivals when I was in high school. Now I'm several years older than Jalen, but that defense had Jalen Ramsey and Derek Barnett on the same defense in high school. And guess what? They did really well. And so Jalen covered him, throughout his senior year, and same with Derek Barnett, who went on to Tennessee and then first-round pick with the Eagles too. So the Rams, with all these Nashville connections, it's kind of crazy.
Man, you're killing me with these tidbits. This is gold. I love
it. When you cover high school football out of college, you get to see a lot of these guys and Nashville as a whole has really grown to where they're putting a lot of guys out in the NFL that you're really starting to see flourish these days.
Unbelievable, man. I can't even imagine seeing some of those. I've completely forgot about Bryson Hopkins' father being Brad Hopkins. I want to see him do well. He's got the tape in college. He's got everything, but for some reason, McVay's not in love with him. I think it may be his last year on the Rams, and no one can figure out why. No one will talk about it, but last week was a big sign to bring a guy up.
Maybe I'll text Brad and see what's up.
Yeah, please. We'll have you back on. Dude, that would be pure gold in Ramland. I'll tell you what, because there's a lot of people in love with him. But God, Jalen Ramsey's just his own vibe. He's his own zip code, man. He is just unbelievable when he walks in a room or on a field. I can't even imagine having the background to watch him play in high school at that age. He must have just been sick.
It wasn't even fair. Like, it was kind of pointless to even like try to throw at him. It was crazy. It was great. It was so much fun to watch. You're just watching. I watched him block a punt one night, I think it was. Derek Barnett played tight end too. So I mean, that just when you watch guys like that on a high school level, like, you just see the separation of how much better they are than everybody else. So it's pretty nuts.
So, yeah, I mean, I am amazingly jealous of that background that you have. Fantastic. I've gotten to see a few, one of them being Justin Herbert, out here from a little town outside of Eugene, Oregon. And I brag about it every chance I get, and everyone thinks I'm nuts. I looked at him, even coming out of Oregon, I said, he's going to be a better pro quarterback than college. Watch. And everyone was like, you're crazy. Tua.
You know who else was on that Brentwood Academy team with Barnett and Ramsey?
Oh, who?
Dawson Knox, Bills tight end.
He's on my fantasy team. I love that man.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I'm telling, and nobody knew who Dawson Knox was when he was in high school. But yeah, Dawson Knox was on that team too.
God, dropping nuggets right here. This is amazing. Dawson Knox, Jalen Ramsey, Barnett. Why did the other team show up? That's unreal.
They did play like in a super league.
Yeah.
I'll say that. They played in a super league there against some really powerhouse private schools in the Nashville area.
Wow. Absolute gold, Austin. Thanks for those tidbits. We're obviously Dawson Knox is a guy that's really come on this year for Buffalo. Unbelievable the last few weeks. And of course, Jalen he's ridiculous. And Barnett, I mean, wow. Good background. Wonderful, man. So looking at this game, there's clearly more connections than even I thought of.
Yeah, we got distracted.
Oh, I love it. Couldn't love it more. But I'm looking at another matchup that I'm really curious to see, and it's not going to be absolute because of the way the Rams move Aaron Donald around, but a guy that I loved and was heartsick for a whole season that we moved was Roger Saffold, who comes over there and he teams with Lawan, who I also, full transparency, I love the guy. I'd love to have him in my locker room. You probably have some good insight there.
Well, he might be available next year, Taylor Lawan.
Really?
Just saying.
Okay,
yeah.
Interesting. If Whitworth goes, which we feel like we have somebody good with Noteboom backing him up, but Lawan he's another one of those guys that brings an aura, man. Good, bad, but edgy, but
right. Yeah, and the left side of the Titans line, they have the run the damn ball and they have run left hats, that they walk around with behind Saffold and Lawan. And when they've been healthy, they've been dominant, and that's a great. I call it, whenever the Titans signed Roger Saffold, I called it like football porn of being able to watch Lawan and Saffold, like how they operated with pin pulls and doing all this different stuff in the run zone blocking scheme and all that. But they've been banged up so much. Yeah. Lawan's played better as of late. He struggled some coming off of the ACL early in the year, but he's got that footing down. And then he got a concussion against Buffalo, but he played against Indianapolis, and so you think he's okay. Roger Saffold, it feels like, unfortunately, he's just bound to get hurt once a game at this point. But the guy's a warrior. He's an absolute beast. So he's been great. But, yeah, Lawan might be available next year. The way his contract sets up, I think he's owed just under $12 million next season, but they can save $11 million if they cut him. Wow. They don't have a lot of dead money on that. So the Titans can move away from him pretty easily if they think it's to that point, because he's 30 years old now. He'll be 31 next year. So, who knows what the future is for Lawan, but he's got a lot to play for. Either he's trying to play well enough to earn keep his job with the Titans, or try to put some tape out there to go get his second career going.
Yeah, somebody will grab him up no matter what. Saffold's injury history was what everyone hated. He had that brief, I signed with the Raiders. Oops, it didn't work out. Came back to the Rams, and everyone kind of groaned because he was always hurt. But Lawan would be a really interesting pickup on the left side for any team. Of course, in Rams land, I'm not sure we have any literally any value to add in sort of a trade or draft picks or anything else, because we just went out and got Von Miller and we've mortgaged everything. So
yeah, you don't have any picks left.
Yeah, it's just nuts. So in the interest of time, so who do you like in this game? What do you see happening with all of these matchups? Titans, Rams.
I really don't see the Titans getting this one. I just don't. As much as I know what Mike Vrabel has the ability to do in games like this, I just don't think this is going to happen. Now, yeah. I know the betting spread was 7.5 Wednesday morning. If it gets up to like 8 or 9, I might take the Titans on the spread. But as of right now, we're a legal betting state here in Tennessee, so we can have all the fun we want. But again, I think the Rams win this one. I just don't think the Titans are going to have the firepower without Derrick Henry to hang tough. And just the injury situation beyond Henry is something that they've been fighting through for the first couple of months of the season. But the Titans are going to give them a fight. They're not going to go away.
No way.
So I just think there's a big intrigue in what they try to – and maybe they catch the Rams off guard in the first half, because – they don't know what to expect, right? Because you knew you were going to expect Derrick Henry to touch the ball 27 times. And now what are they going to do with those 27 to 30 touches a game?
Yep.
How are they going to divvy it up with Adrian Peterson? Does he look ready to go? Is he fresh? Do they have extra wrinkles in the passing game? And Mike Vrabel said Monday that you don't want to get into a drop back passing game with this team. And so I know he doesn't want to throw the ball 40 times, but I think he might have to on Sunday night.
Yeah, and the Rams are notoriously slow starters, so I could see the Titans trying to jump out from it. We saw the Lions do it, and they have nowhere near the talent. So I could see them pulling that kind of a maneuver early in this game. I too think
Titans have been slow starters too. The only fast start they've got is when they got up on the Chiefs 27-0 at half.
Man, that game was unreal.
They've been slow start. They were down 14-0 and 8 minutes later into the first quarter against the Colts. So they've been slow. So two slow starting teams could be interesting.
Could be real interesting. We could see the defenses rise up in this game. I too think the Rams will edge them just based on injuries and a little more talent in some key spots. I'm really curious to see Ramsey plays that star position. Is he going to follow Julio around? Is he going to follow AJ around? Is he going to do none of the above? We're a little banged up in the secondary. I think we're in for a great game. I'd love to see one of those Rams-Chiefs 2018 Monday Night Football, just epic games. I think it would be great. So fantastic. Well, hey, we finish each show with a 2-minute drill. It never goes 2 minutes, but we do our best. This is where we learn about our guest, Austin Stanley. And we have a little fun with this. So I'm going to hit you with some quick questions, 2-minute drill. You're in the red zone. You just shoot back your answers, and we get to know you. That's the whole point of the 2-minute drill. So, okay, you're crunching film. You're watching the game. What's your beverage of choice out there? Or is there
working? Am I working?
You don't have to be working. That's not fun.
Okay. All right. Because if I'm working, I drink. I'm a volume drinker. Like I grew up a Kobe Bryant fan, volume shooter. I'm a volume drinker, right?
Me too.
So, there you go. So I drink a lot of water just throughout the day. But if I'm going alcohol of choice, man, because of the volume, I go with the seltzers. Beer messes me up. I can't do beer anymore, unfortunately.
We're the same dude, man.
I drink too much too fast to go bourbon. I love bourbon, but nice. I can easily get myself into trouble. So I have to go with the seltzers if I'm going with a volume. Like watching a football game for 3 hours, you have to be able to last.
Pace,
that's
man.
Where I go with seltzers are. I'll land on the seltzers.
Pace it. I like it, man. We're the same guy. Don't do the beer. We're in craft beer land out here, but man, I'm like half asleep after half a beer, so it just isn't my thing.
Exactly.
All right, this one doesn't always apply. Depends on a lot of the players love this. Xbox, PC, or PlayStation, or does it matter?
I have not played a video game since I was 21, so it's actually like 10 years.
Way more mature than most of us.
When I did play, I was an Xbox guy. I was Xbox 360. I'll take that back. I was 24 because what really did me was the end of the NCAA football game. That's what
huge
did
issue.
Me. Yeah. So, and I've always said that if that comes back, I might have to. I'll have to, very busy at these points. I don't have time for that, but the NCAA football game would probably get me back to buying something. But I was an Xbox guy back in the day.
Man, I tell you, we lost everything after when I was 24. You look 24. How does this work, man?
I'm 31. I just don't grow facial hair.
You're definitely the face for TV, folks. I love it. Okay, so you cover everything out there. The Vols. I used to fly into Knoxville, stay in the hotel right above the big Basketball Hall of Fame with the big ball, go to the games. Yeah. College or pro? Where's your love lie?
Well, I think it's because of what I do. In the business I run, I'm too close to the Titans to really be a fan of any NFL anymore. So, but the one thing you cannot strip away from me is that I graduated. I have a diploma from the University of Tennessee.
Oh,
and
nice.
So I am a Tennessee Vol. My parents' first date was in Knoxville in 1985 when the Vols knocked off #1 Auburn and Bo Jackson.
Oh, I watched it.
So I have Tennessee Vols in my blood, and you can't get rid of that from me. So that's where I go with that.
Man, I love it. Yeah, I miss going to Knoxville. I used to, subject for another podcast, used to hangouts, way not the correct word. I used to do business with Jimmy Haslam back in the day at Pilot Travel Center. So yeah, go Vols. We need to go on a whole show about volunteers, Peyton Manning and the like, but that's for another day.
We could do hours on all of that drama.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you're drafted in the NFL. What's your jersey number?
81.
Okay, there's a Y.
Yeah, that's what I wore in high school. I played
Got
wide
it.
receiver, so there you go.
Ah,
Sticking with the 8-1.
blowing my mind today. That was my brother's number. He was a wide receiver.
There you go.
81. Yeah, love it. Okay, here's where it gets tough, man. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Rank them: Eddie George, Chris Johnson, King Henry. You're starting a team.
Oh God.
Yeah, time for a bleeding ulcer, right?
Yeah. I think Chris Johnson's probably the third.
And that's tough, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've
Yeah.
got two 2,000-yard rushers and
Yeah.
then Eddie George. You know, because I've always said that Derrick Henry is like the combination of both of those guys, because he has the breakaway speed of CJ and he's got the physicality of Eddie. And so I think because Eddie George was so damn good from rookie year through the first 7 years of his career, and Derrick Henry had to kind of it was like year 2.5 is when he had things click. I'll say Eddie George 1 and Derrick Henry 2, Chris Johnson 3 for their entire career. Now, I think
Right.
at their peak, nobody is better than Derrick Henry. So does that make sense for an answer? Or
Oh,
is that
absolutely. Man, I love it. I mean, there's nothing more entertaining about that question than watching people break down their reasoning, because King Henry isn't done. So, folks.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
And again, he's done for the next 8 weeks, maybe. But I do think
good.
Yeah. So I feel okay with that answer.
Okay, that's solid. Going old school today.
Yes.
We hook up and touch base in 3 months, and might be a different answer. We all know how that works.
Sure.
Okay, fantastic. Most underrated player of all time, in your opinion?
Oh. Can I just
you go Tennessee or Titans.
I'm gonna stay in Nashville for simplicity. Let's go Derrick Mason. Wide receiver Derrick Mason.
Man, he was good.
He's actually is the franchise leader in receiving yards for 2 franchises, for the Titans and the Ravens.
Did not know that. That's insane.
Yeah.
You know, I put Derrick Mason in the Henry Allard category for Rams fans. Like, absolutely dependable as the day is long. Comes up with every play you need, and people don't talk enough about him. God, good choice, man.
D-Mace was great. He doesn't get a lot of recognition. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer, unfortunately, just because he doesn't have the volume of numbers. But I mean, you go back and look at, you Google Derrick Mason's stats, and you can just see all the 1,000-yard seasons he was stacking up on offenses that didn't throw the ball throughout the 2000s. So I'll go with D-Mace. God,
great choice. Great choice. Okay, last one, and then we'll get you out of here. This is where we learn about your sense of humor. Anchorman, Step Brothers, or Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby. You could say Elf in there. Throw Elf in there too.
Ooh,
since we're
Elf really changes that. I was gonna say Anchorman, and now I have to think between Anchorman and Elf, because that's my wife and I's favorite Christmas movie is Elf.
Okay.
It's so quotable. I mean, all of them are quotable, but yeah, I'll stick with Anchorman just because it's a year-round thing, where Elf, Christmas time. So I'll go Anchorman.
I love it, man. I love it. Austin Stanley, thank you, my friend. Loved having you on. God, what some gold nuggets you dropped on us today. Appreciate it.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
Where can we find you? We're getting introduced to A to Z Sports. Where can we find you?
Yeah, I would say the easiest thing to do is to either subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is A to Z Sports Nashville, ATOZ Sports Nashville. Same thing on Facebook. Also on Twitter is just A to Z Sports. Those are probably the 3 best places to find us. Our content goes crazy all over Instagram. We've got we're basically everywhere. We're on TikTok too. If you're on TikTok, we're on TikTok. I don't know much of TikTok, but we're there. So I'll tell you that much.
We are too, and I cannot figure it out. So guess what? You just got a follower after the show. I need to go figure this out. Folks, follow A to Z Sports. These guys are fantastic. I have to confess, I follow you for convenience a lot of times on Facebook Live on some of the football sites. That's where I was introduced to you. The content is so good, and understanding your background now, I really get it. I want to thank you, Austin Stanley, for joining us and dropping some nuggets on us this week. And folks, go follow A to Z Sports. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.